All right, looks like it's 12:30 and it is Wednesday, May 6th. Am I with anybody or am I by myself? What's going on out here? Hey, Gavisha. Nice to see your blank emoji. It looks just like mine, except it's blue and mine's red. KV. Is that Kajisha? So Kavisha and Kajisha happen to be here? Wow. All right. Yes. I think I'm starting to get more adept. Hey, Harmo Heat. I think I'm getting more adept at figuring out who you are based on your initials. It's Kajisha. Yeah. All right. So I'm never sure how many are going to join us. And my time, like yours, is always somewhat limited. And I thought today I would move upstairs. So I'm not in the Zoo room today. Today I'm upstairs in our kind of our main living space. And I just want to do a sound check. So am I coming through clearly? If I am coming through clearly, can one of you let me know that I am, or if I'm quiet, or yep. Yes. All right. Kavisha, Kajisha, and Harmo Heat. The thing about this, there might be a place where I can actually see who or how many people are in. You're coming through clear. All right. But if it's in here, I don't know where it is. I probably should ask an expert who's used to using this technology. So I decided to move from downstairs to upstairs. That means we're not going to go into the Zoo room because I'm actually connected to my equipment as opposed to the mobile device I was last week. Okay, so upstairs we have a number of animals. And one of the things I have up here is a 225-gallon fish tank. So I'm kind of zoomed in here, so it makes it a little hard to see everything. So I'm just going to move the camera back and forth. And you're seeing some of the reflection from the as well as the reflect. It's a very bright room, right? So I'm going to talk about some of the processes of taking care of a fish tank. So I know a lot of people, I've talked to a few students who have, a 50-gallon, a 20-gallon, a 10-gallon sometimes for a little goldfish. Some people have a 100. So this is a 225-gallon tank. So what does that mean in terms of size? Let me just back up a little bit here. Unfortunately, I can't zoom out anymore. But in terms of size, what it means, if I come on camera here, I get an arm span, it's 6 feet long. It is 3 feet from bottom to top, and it is 2 feet deep, right? So it's a relatively large tank. That's a lot. AN. AN. Who is AN? And Kriti? Hi, Kriti. You're not going to tell me who you are, AN? All right. That's okay. So this tank, being 6 feet by 3 feet by 2 feet, it requires a lot of water, 225 gallons. Now, before I come back, okay, and hey, Angela. Now, before I come back to the tank, I'm going to actually leave the tank for a moment, talk about a couple other things, and come back to the tank. So upstairs here, in my Zoo room, you've seen some of the animals. You actually haven't seen them all. You've only seen, I've only seen, you've only seen the chameleons. You haven't seen the frilled lizard. You have seen the ball python and the milk snake. You have seen Bubbles and Tsunami, the turtles, and you've seen Pebbles, the tortoise. But you haven't seen much of Whiplash because she's very quick. You haven't seen the amoebas or the tarantulas yet, or the vinegaroon, and a couple of other animals downstairs. So we'll come back to those maybe next week. This week we're upstairs. So upstairs, what do we have? Well, we have. Everyone ask me, do you have a cat or a dog? Nope, I don't have a cat, and we don't have a dog. We have a lot of other animals. The only mammals that we have as pets are, they're brothers, and they were babies. together. We bought them shortly after birth, and they are still have a little bit of growing left in them, but they're pretty much full grown, and this is their world, right? They get to leave this and run around the house every once in a while, and they do like to wander. Domino, the one with the dark pattern and white pattern, more dark than white. Domino is the leader, and Ghost is a follower. That's how it works. So wherever Domino goes, Ghost follows. And taking care of guinea pigs is interesting. I know some of you have small animals, rat or gerbil, hamster, or guinea pigs. They don't live very long. That's one of the sad things. Whenever you have a pet, that often the pet has a life. So if you do get a guinea pig, it's good. Often you're not going to be taking it to university or with you or something like that. They probably won't last that long, but they are mammals. They're warm-blooded, and a lot of people really gravitate towards the mammals. So the interesting thing about guinea pigs, rodent. I'm going to take Ghost, because Ghost is easier to handle. Ghost typically doesn't mind when he picks up. Is that right? There we go. All right. So as we look at Ghost here, rodents are very interesting animals. And so for those of you in the grade 11 class, we're going to get into diversity. We're in diversity now, and next week we'll be talking specifically about all the different animal phyla. And rodents are interesting because they have those incisors at the front. And we start talking about systems with, so you get the focus happening. Unfortunately, I do not have my helper. So that means I'm, once again, manipulating everything on my own. They have these front incisors, and these teeth grow forever, right? They just grow. And so one of the things you have to supply for these guinea pigs and most rodents is something they can chew on so their teeth don't get too long. Otherwise, that's very problematic. So they're constantly chewing. Even if they're not eating, they're constantly chewing, right? So this here is Ghost. And to take care of the guinea pigs, you might notice that we have a lot of, hey Lavish, we have there's a hay. They eat hay. Some people will just take the guinea pigs and give them grass. And guinea pigs are, in a sense, similar to humans in one particular aspect, and that's their ability to metabolize vitamin C. They can't do it very well. And so you have to make sure that you're giving them the right food supply. So you have to give them hay. They eat Timothy hay. And so sometimes people get guinea pigs and they won't feed them properly, and they end up getting this metabolic disorder and they die very early. So for us, like, hay is kind of expensive. You go to PetSmart or something like that, they'll sell you a little chunk of hay like this for like $20. Your best bet is to go to like a farm. And so we live in farm country. I brought it inside. We don't normally keep this inside. But here I have a bale. It's half a bale of hay. That's hay, right? Same thing we feed to the horses. So we buy them by the bale. So I could buy this. It's twice as big actually when it starts. And we buy it for like $10. So that's a steal. And the other thing you have to do for the guinea pigs is we have to give them fresh bedding. So this here is very interesting how they pack it. It's all compressed. So when I open up this bag, it'll actually double or it triples in size because it's under a lot of pressure. So as I open that bag, I'll fill up a big giant garbage bin, and then we're able to use that to easily change the guinea pig cage. So that's a little bit about guinea pig care. Any questions happening right now? Pratik, hey Pratik. Pratik's going, all right. So other thing that I'm going to talk about before I get back to the fish tank. For those of you walking in, I showed the fish tank at the beginning. We're going to come back to that in just a moment. So the guinea pigs, they're very easy animals to take care of. Normally we'll feed them a carrot or two, a couple times a week. And when the summer opens up, we'll bring them to the backyard. They can munch on some fresh grass. We have some pellets that are stacked full of other vitamins that they need for their development. And that's about it. Right? Give them some water and they're good to go. Give them some love. Cut their nails because their nails get really long, and that's also problematic. Another animal that I brought up here today is not in the zoo room. So this one here is Leo the leopard gecko. And I'm just going to zoom in here on the tank. I'll take Leo out. And I'll focus here. There. And I'll change the angle of the tank so you can see Leo. There we go. So Leo is the oldest pet that we have. And so some of the pets, we often buy our pets from breeders. But sometimes we inherit pets too. Sometimes people are tired of their pets for whatever reason. Their own son or daughter is going off to university, they don't want to take care of them. So Leo was actually one that we inherited. There was somebody at my wife's school that she teaches at, and they were graduating, and they knew that we liked animals, and we had our 2 boys who were quite young at that time. So they gave us Leo, and that was 10 years ago, I think. At least 10 years ago. Leo here is at least 15 years old. It's leopard gecko. So he's the oldest pet that we have, and is almost as old as Darian. We saw, oh, that's another animal we have downstairs. We have a gecko downstairs. So this is like your classic gecko that climbs on walls, right? So let me zoom back out. This is Leo. And very similar in style to the other lizard I showed you, Thor. If Leo feels threatened, then Leo, the leopard gecko, will drop this tail. And then hopefully whatever's threatening him will eat the tail, and then Leo can escape. And then he'll regrow back the tail, but it will not be the same length. Often it'll be slightly different color, and so on. So as I said before, we've had Leo for Leo's about 15 years, and we've had him for at least 10. And you look at his habitat looks small, but they don't roam very much. They eat crickets. We give him a heat pad underneath the tank. Clearly we don't leave him here. I just brought him out here for today. And he also sits up here because I don't know, maybe it's more of the family or something like that, but the boys have had him since they were really small. And so he stays up here, not in their bedroom, but in one of the rooms. And I see him very often. The zoo room, we go specifically down to look at the animals and whatnot and take care of them. But Leo's up here with the family more often. Okay, so that's Leo. Any questions about Leo? Is Thor still grumpy? Yes, Thor is still grumpy. How long will he live? Well, we don't know. I mean, these lizards here, they can live anywhere from 10, I can't even find the camera. Where is the camera? There it is. And go this way. Just go further out. So they can live anywhere from, 15, 20, 25 years sometimes. Captivity, the environment is obviously much more safe than outside in the real world. All right, so I'm gonna put Leo back. Oh, there we go. So back up. Leo is a desert lizard, so you'll notice that he's different from the lizards I've shown you last week, which have sand and mulch at the bottom. Leo have mulch and dirt at the bottom. This one here is a desert lizard, so it's sand at the bottom. So this is the first time you're seeing sand in one of the tanks, and that's appropriate for this lizard. What does Leo eat? Leo eats crickets. Almost all our reptiles and our arthropods eat crickets, which makes it super easy because it means you don't have to get a lot of specialized food. Now, you guys have probably heard about those murder wasps. I do not have a murder wasp here. That's kind of a misnomer, right? Because they don't murder people, and even though they belong to the Vespidae family, they are not wasps per se. We more properly call them hornets, giant Asian hornets. And so these giant Asian hornets, let me just put on something more interesting since Leo's gone in. Put it back on the fish tank here. All right, got the fish tank. Zoom back out so you guys can see the whole thing. Well, I'll see a part of it anyway. All right, so with hornets and yellow jackets, they are aggressive wasps. And I did put up a picture that was kind of on, I think it was on Twitter, of a wasp that I took a picture of yesterday, and it's a paper wasp. And paper wasps are very common in Ontario. This is probably if you see a wasp with that black and yellow coloration, it's likely a paper wasp. And paper wasps, even though their sting can be painful, they're not aggressive wasps. They tend to be protective in a sense, but they generally won't sting. You can sit there and they can swarm around you, and typically they won't hurt you. If you got an allergy, keep safe. But generally speaking, you don't have to be worried about paper wasps. But if you are concerned about paper wasps, what a lot of people do is they'll spray. And wasps, like bees, I don't know if you know this, but honeybees are invasive animals. They don't belong in North America. They're brought here by the Europeans a couple hundred years ago, and they have since then outcompeted all our natural pollinators. But we do have a lot of pollinators, of which the paper wasp is one of them. It eats larvae of grubs and beetles, so they're great for controlling pests, and they pollinate. if you do not want to have them around your home, then what I found very effective is one of these. So it's an artificial wasp nest, right? They're relatively cheap. They cost like $5 each, maybe even less. And wasps are incredibly territorial. And so they are so territorial that they don't want to have their nest anywhere close to another wasp, a paper wasp. And so if you hang these around, typically you won't get another wasp nest for at least, they say might be a couple hundred feet, but if you live where I do in the country where there's so much space, it's not as big a space, but it's still very effective. It can protect a deck. It can protect, a back door or something like that. They won't build. And then they do this once a year, and at the end of the year up here in Ontario, they will abandon the nest. So we actually have a number of nests around our house that we haven't taken down. We've left them up because they act as a deterrent. So now that nest is there, we know no other paper wasp will be making a home in that particular area. This species. There's different types of wasps that will make homes inside your home as well. So that's a little bit different. But this, great. Any questions? Okay, no other questions. So back to the fish tank. So this fish tank is, as I mentioned before, for those of you coming late, it's a 225-gallon tank. It is a 6 feet by 3 feet by 2 feet. And one of the things I wanted to talk about today is I want to talk about how do you take care of a fish tank, right? So I'm going to take 10 minutes or so and explain how you go about taking care of a fish tank like this. So we feed them a couple times a day. Yeah, question. Why are you? So one of the things, thank you, that's a nice compliment. But one of the things that we have to do with our fish is we have to feed them, right? We have to feed them. And I have a whole bunch of different types of fish in here. Every fish that we always get when they're babies. So they're typically the size of my thumb. Big Bob Jr., I don't remember the names because the kids name them, but these cichlids here, they're the kind of fish that you typically would not put in a small tank because they are aggressive. They can be aggressive. So if you go to the fish store, they'll often give you a color coding, and they'll say green is community, and that yellow is be aware, and red don't have it with anybody. So an arowana or a piranha, you do not put those fish with other fish because they'll eat them. The cichlid is aggressive in the sense that it's territorial, and most of these cichlids are females, and so even though they haven't been fertilized by the male, well, fish don't fertilize. That's a different story. She'll lay eggs and then she'll protect them. But the eggs are infertile because there's no male here. So she happens to be a little bit more territorial. And then this colorful one down here, they're both the same fish, same species, is also somewhat territorial. So you see how she just kind of poked her, like get out of my way? A lot of fish are territorial, but only for their shape. So if you look like me, then you can't be in my area. But if you don't look like me, I don't care, right? So a lot of fish will do that. Cichlids are not necessarily like that. They're like, if you're in my spot and I'm in that mood, then just get out of my way, get out of my space. But they typically won't bother bigger fish. So these here are tricolor. Oh, not tricolor. These here are red-tailed barbs. And a lot of people will buy these fish. We actually inherited some of these fish from a person as well. They'll buy these fish, and they're super small, and they're super cheap. They'll buy them, and they grow, and they grow, and they grow. And they're like, oh, wait a second, that's too big for my tank. So often, depending on who they are and how they take care of the fish, we might take their fish just because. And so these tricolor, these red-tailed tinfoil barbs, they start off the size of my thumb. Here's a striped leperinus. And these two up here, if you can see them, the ones that are further up beside the cichlid, they're severums that just swim off the tank. In our tank here, we have a lot of catfish. And the catfish we have tend to get information before buying them. Exactly. Do you have carnivorous fish? No. If the video is cutting out, is it still cutting out, Critty? So what I want to do is I'm going to zoom in on some of these smaller fish here. So what's interesting is typically when someone said you should need to do your research on the fish, so typically with bigger fish in the tank, you will not get the smaller fish. Because if you do, the bigger fish might eat them. So yes, we do have some carnivorous fish, Pratik. And these small fish there, they're called cory cats. And cory cats are really interesting because they have these big giant whiskers. And the whiskers actually make their effective size larger. It makes them large enough that they can't fit in the mouth of some of the other fish. So in this tank here, I'm going to focus on this fish right there. See it? So that striped one, that's a catfish. And that catfish has a really big mouth. And so generally, Severe needs to get out of the way. It's because, okay, I'm going to feed them. If I feed them, then that will get these guys to stop following the camera. All right, so zoom out here. So what do I feed them? Flakes. So flakes are, they got a whole bunch of nutrients on them that the fish like. So fish flakes. So these are for the herbivorous fish. And they're always hungry. See them up there? Another thing I have is algae wafers. Algae wafers. Sometimes I'll use krill, not very often. And the other thing I feed them, especially for the carnivorous fish, are these. So I have frozen chunks of shrimp. They're minced and frozen the chunks. And I have frozen brine shrimp and bloodworms. So it's been in the freezer. I put it in. It thaws very quickly. The water's pretty warm. And as it thaws, it releases a whole bunch of shrimp. And then they love that stuff. So that helps keep them healthy. Giving them a varied diet for the fish allows them to be a little bit more healthy. No. Do the fish sleep? So sleeping is interesting. We'll talk more about this in grade 12. So we sleep as humans. If you do not sleep for a certain length of time, you will die, right? You have to sleep. Your body has to shut down. It has to do something. Other animals, and most animals do sleep, but some animals have this thing where they're able to shut down half their brain. Dolphins, birds, they shut down half their brain. The left hemisphere and the right hemisphere stays awake. And then that controls their body for a certain period of time, and then they switch. And fish, depending on what kind of fish you're talking about, they don't necessarily go into a proper sleep per se, but at night they do have a day-night cycle. So at nighttime, most of these fish will kind of settle down. The tinfoil barbs, they just kind of hang out in one spot in the water. But some of the fish, they'll go to the bottom and they just hang out down there. Some of the other fish that are nocturnal, they come out at nighttime. They start swimming around. So I have some fish that you won't see today. How do you ensure every fish gets food? I don't, and I just have to make sure I put enough food in. That's why I feed all those different types. That I really have to put the algae wafers, the flakes, and the shrimp and the frozen stuff in at the same time, and then that way the food can get to the bottom. So let me see if I can show you that catfish. Oh, okay, catfish is feeding as well. So you can see that catfish there. So that's one of the catfish. And there's a lot of cory cats beside it, and there's a larger catfish. That is not the largest catfish. You see that fish that just went zooming past? A kubota. Those are really cool fish. We have a couple of large ones, and they look like they're sleeping when you ask that question. The first time we saw them do this, we thought it was dead, and I stuck my hand in and it swam off. But it has a habit of going to the bottom of the tank and lying on its side, and it just looks like it's done. See inside there? That's one of the larger catfish. Let me see if I can zoom in here. That's the one you have to be careful of. That's the one that will just eat anything that can fit in its mouth. So you have to be careful. I'm right there. So it eats anything that will fit in its mouth. But luckily, the cory cats, well, not luckily, we buy our fish specifically so they don't get eaten. You'll see that I'm a Stargate fan. I don't know if you guys know that science fiction show. That's that Stargate's fish toy. Now, I want to show you this other catfish. They're amazing in the way they hide. They become a part. I'm going to try to zoom in. You might be able to see it. When I try to zoom in, the lighting might make it a little hard. So I got this whole fake structure right where I'm, and it won't until, even though I put food in there, stay there. So that body that you see there, I can't even point at it. It's right in the middle of the screen. That is a catfish. So there's a catfish there, and I think there's one, yeah, right beside it. See it? See its tail? Well, with the inside the tank. We also have some, there's the kubotas there. You can see them there. Right, those are the ones that play dead. And that one there is a marbled Colombian shark. It's not actually like shark as in cartilaginous fish. Kind of see it going around. These are animals, right? So it's hard, especially in the fish tank, to get them to slow down and get a really good view of what's happening. Any other questions happening? So the last thing I want to show you is what does it entail to actually run a fish tank like this? So if you take a look on the far side of the tank there, you're going to see a bunch of pipes. These are tubes coming into the tank. So most of you, if you run a fish tank, you might have an over the edge kind of filter. The water comes in, it goes through a filter, and it goes back into the tank. Because it's such a large tank, and because I want the fish to be as healthy as possible, I actually have 3 of those, and they're canister filters. So it pulls water from the tank from those 3 things at the end, and it pulls into a canister below, which I'm going to show you. Another thing you'll notice in this tank is these bubbles. So I'm going to change something here. I'm not going to do it today, not on the camera, but those bubbles aren't just decoration. Those bubbles are to ensure that the water is oxygenated. You'll notice that I do not have live plants in this tank. This tank has fake plants. One of the reasons is because of those big giant cichlids, those parrot cichlids. You'll see that one, that orange cichlid there. They're diggers, they dig. So in about a week's time, you see that little mound here? That little mound will be about here. And so they dig, they pick up a pebble one at a time, over and over, hour by hour, day by day. And so they uproot everything. So it'll be very difficult for me to keep rooted plants in this tank because of the cichlids, because of the amount of digging that they do. Rooting, having a live aquarium is the best. It's great. It takes more work, more care, but they're fantastic. And downstairs I have that. Why do they dig? They dig because they're ultimately looking to create a place where they can lay eggs and where they can kind of burrow. It's kind of their territoriality. It's part of their behavior. So I don't have live plants in here. So because of that, I have this oxygenator. So all those bubbles, and you can't see it very well on the camera, those bubbles help make sure that the oxygen levels in the water is super high. One of the things that happened to us is we had hey Alien, we had this major problem, and it was a power failure. So we live in the country, so power failures are a reality. If there's a big windstorm or a snowstorm, it knocks down a tree, knocks out a line. And our bubbler died. And this is a long time ago, so it was actually before the bubbler. And it wasn't just that. I wasn't doing a good job of cleaning the tank. You have to clean the tank, and that's one of the things I'm going to show you. And if you don't clean the tank properly, then at the bottom, what will happen is you end up getting a lot of bacteria in this gravel. And the bacteria goes through an anaerobic process. When they decompose the fish waste and if any fish die and any food that's not eaten, when they decompose it, it will use up all the oxygen, and you end up with an oxygen dead zone at the bottom of the tank. And if you don't take care of it well, then what will happen is that for those who do chemistry, you know how a titration works. You put one drop, everything's fine. You put the next drop, and you move past the buffer limit. Same thing with this. At one moment it's okay, and all of a sudden you hit this magic concentration, and it just floods a part of the tank. And so we had this major disaster, catastrophe. And we came out in the morning, and all the fish were at the top of the tank, and they're gulping for air, gulping. They couldn't get air, and we lost half the fish. And so after that, I made sure I put in a really good aerator. And if we lose power for too long, I have a generator in the garage, gas power generator. And this is the one thing I connect to make sure it gets oxygen, because these are big fish, they're active fish, and we don't want to lose them. All right. So let me show you what it looks like underneath. Okay, so I'm gonna try moving everything here. All right. That's a side view. All right. So underneath the tank. In order to run a tank like this is what it looks like. So this is the part that most of you don't get a chance to see. All right. So I have all of these here for sound, to deaden the sound. But this is what the underneath of a tank looks like, of a big tank like this. So under here, I have a bunch of things going on. I have these Eheim canister filters that's on the left, and those are sucking water from those pipes that you saw at the end of the tank. And they go through there, and they all have this biologic filtration, a physical filtration. They take out a lot of the ammonia and and phosphate waste that's in the tank that if left too long will cause the bacteria to bloom and kill the fish. And then I have another canister filter, a bigger one, this one here. So all three of those are going all at the same time. And so if one dies, it's okay. I actually only need two, but it's just overkill to make sure that if anything untoward were to happen, then I'll be okay. And I change these tank filters, clean them out, once every 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, depending on what the tank looks like. And then this thing here, that is an air pump. So that air pump is huge. It's a big air pump. Most air pumps are about a quarter of that size, half that size. That allows this tank to push out, first of all, water to go up about 3 feet. And it pushes the water around and allows the oxygen to oxygenate the water, right? So that's what the under looks like. And the other part that's in here, let's see if we can get over this side. You see this tube here? Let me see if I can. Okay, so that right there, the thing I'm focusing on in the middle of the screen, that's a UV sterilizer. This is a really bright room, right? So you kind of saw the lights here, right? That's a big window. There's a lot of light coming in that window there. So as a light comes in that window, this tank, a lot of you, if you ever run a tank, you know that bright light causes algae. So I needed this the very first time when I had this tank for the first year or so, and then all of a sudden the water's all green. I couldn't figure out why the water was green. And then I realized that the algae was loving the light, and so it was growing in the tank, making the water green. So this UV sterilizer, all the water in the tank, as it goes through one of the big giant canister I showed you down there, it goes to that UV sterilizer, and it destroys the algae. Some of the algae. There's different types of algae. Some algae sit on the tank. And then you'll notice that in here, there's a ton of wires. Look at that. Look at all those wires. Who knew you need all these wires in order to run a fish tank? Wires and tubes, and you can't really see in there because I have the back door closed. But yeah, you need so many things in order to run a successful fish tank. Right? So that is the fish tank. And the last thing, I guess, once I close these up here, is a lot of people say, well, how do you clean this tank? Because it seems like it's a lot of work. And it is to clean the tank. It's not that much. All right. So in order to clean the tank, what I do is I use a special, because I'm not anywhere close to the sink. So I use a special thing. We call it a Python. There's a number of different brands. So this thing here goes into the tank, which I'm going to show you. Right, it goes into the tank. And so this is connected to a tube. And this tube I have going all the way into the laundry room to the laundry room sink. And connected to a faucet. Okay. And then I will attach it to this tank. You guys can see it in the tank. This, I said, no, I'm not doing it while on camera. And then I go to the sink and I turn it on. And so now what happens, you don't understand the concept, but it's a physics concept here. And the water goes through an attachment to the faucet, and it causes a vacuum, a water vacuum that pulls the water from the tank along this tube to the sink. And so now I'm emptying the tank, but more importantly, when I bring this down to the bottom, you guys can see, if I bring it down to the gravel down here, you see that stuff that's coming up the tube? See how all that stuff, that's all uneaten algae discs and uneaten fish food and things like that. So this is how I clean the tank. So I spend, when I'm doing this part here, this takes about 15 minutes. So you can see what's happening there. So I wanted to show you the whole process. And so that all gets sucked up into this tube, right down the sink, down the drain. When I've done enough, I will stop it, I'll reverse it. reverse it so that the water is going the opposite way. Now, I was trying to do something quickly, but I can't. I have to actually take the whole thing out. Because once I have a full water column, I don't know if you guys ever watched those movies, zombie apocalypse movies, where people run out of gas and they go to a car and they siphon the gas out of the gas tank. Well, this is a similar process. Once I have a column of water, as long as the other end is lower than this end, the water will drain out. So I actually have to pull the whole thing out of the tank, otherwise the water will drain. You're supposed to change this water about a quarter of it once every certain period of time. So what I do, instead of relying on the pump, the cleaner you saw, I'll actually connect it to that pump. So I put that pump into the tank, the hose into the tank. I put the other end to a hose that's outside my front door, and then I pump water out of the tank. And I'll pump about 20% of the water out, and I'll fill it with clean water. Because remember, this is a closed ecosystem. Because it's closed, that means that the water has to be mechanically, biologically filtered by my filters. And then the best way to keep your fish healthy is just to change the water and get it fresh water. I live in country, so I don't have city water. That means there's no chlorine in my water. That means I can put my water directly into the tank, and it's fine. All right, so that brings us to the end of this. If there's any questions, the bubbles are destroying your YouTube compression. Huh. Yeah, we also had, well, basically, someone asked the setup. So this tank, I don't know if you guys know how much water weighs. Water is heavy. So when our builder, we built this home, we designed this home, when our builder was designing the home, underneath this particular part of the floor, he put a wall, a very short wall, like an 8-foot wall. And that was going to further, the beam structure will support a lot of weight. It can support a hot tub even. But just to, over the span of the life of the home and the chance of things, bowing over a period of time, you put a full wall that's about 8 feet in length underneath this tank to help support. And the beams also run perpendicular to the length of this tank. So it also has the weight spread out across several beams. So there's the design, and then this was custom built, this cabinet, which you can't see. You can't see the cabinet. There's a cabinet, but that was custom built. The top closes, right now it's open, and it opens up even further like a piano front case. And the tank itself, when it came in, we needed help putting it in. So they delivered the tank, about 4 guys put the tank in very gently. And after that, it was all me. I had to set up the whole thing. And it's gone through several different looks. And I'm going to do a new one during this pandemic. I'm probably going to try to take out the fish and do a thorough clean of the glass and then redo it. Why do they dig? Did you set up? Okay, so I'm done. And I've taken way too much time of your time. But I hope that you guys learned something, or at least you found it somewhat interesting. And maybe I will see you next week. Any last questions? No last questions. All right, so this will be online, available for anyone to watch at any point that would like to. And I will see you on another time. All right, so bye, everybody. If you want to say bye, is anyone still there? Goodbye. Bye, Pratik. Nice to see you.